Welcome to the Hoop God Podcast Season 2, brought to you by the Bayesidian. My name is Jesus Acevedo Jr., and I'm joined by the one and only Zodiac GM. Zodiac GM, it's NBA playoff time. How are you feeling?
It's time, man. It seems like we've been waiting for this time for so long. But yeah, I'm excited. Very excited to see what happens in the playoffs, man.
The playoffs, it's as I've grown older, now into my 40s, I enjoy more playoff basketball than regular season basketball. Regular season basketball is fine, right? But it's like in these NBA playoffs, now that as I'm older and appreciate the game in a different perspective than what I did when I was younger, just kind of analyze a little better. Just the competitive spirit, you see it. There's just nothing like it. There's just nothing like the NBA playoffs. And let's be honest, it's first round for people that love basketball. There's games all the time.
Every day. And we love it, man. I'm always excited to see like who the Cinderella teams are, playoffs, or memories are created that way. So I don't know.
Not just teams, not just teams. Players, players make their names in these playoffs. Sometimes players get paid off of their playoff performance, right? And there's always those unsung heroes. So yeah. So with this episode, we're gonna do it's all NBA playoffs. Obviously, we're gonna try to break down every series. No, not try to. We're doing it. We're doing it every series. Yes. We're doing it every series. 5 minutes on each series. Try to see who has the advantages. Now, here's something that I was telling you before we hit record. So, is that once you get to playoffs, also all these teams have good synergy, right? I mean, they made the playoffs. They all have good synergy. Now it gets down to the finer details. Like, is somebody A plus energy versus a B plus energy, because B plus energy, you got good synergy, but maybe you're facing an A plus energy, So it's also about those finer details, and it's also where maybe sometimes talent supersedes that synergy.
Exactly.
So let's kick it off. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. I am ready.
And let's start in the Eastern Conference. We're gonna start with the game that just finished. We're recording Friday night. It finished a little while ago. The Cavs are the number one seed. They're facing the winner, the Miami Heat, the winner. They won the play-in tournament against the Atlanta Hawks, and it looked for a minute that the Heat were going to run away, and the Hawks made a comeback, but at the end, the Heat nabbed it away from them in overtime. So Cavs versus Heat. I think this should be a Cavs win, Zodiac GM, but Heat, and I think you've tweeted out about this, they're a very sneaky team because of their synergy, right? They're
100%.
Right? So, and on top of that, once you add their culture and what they're known for, they've made the playoffs deep runs, being 8 seed, 7 seed, 6 seed. So once they get to playoffs, sometimes for Miami, it's like a switch happens. So I wonder how much of the Heat culture and how tough they play will impact the Cavs in the playoffs. This Cavs team is a team that has playoff experience, right? I think last year they were a 4 or 5 seed. So this is a team that has experience, but this is the first time under this new head coach, Kenny Atkinson, a Gemini, stand-up represent. So I do think the Cavs are going to pull it off, but I'm interested to see how you see it from a synergy perspective. And I know we said they both have good synergy, but who do you think pulls ahead in this one?
They do. So Miami Heat is such a sneaky team. Like, ever since they acquired, Mitchell, who was it, Anderson, and also Wiggins. The synergy was there, right? And they had a few rotational players that kind of threw off or set an imbalance in the rotation. But as to date, when they played the Atlanta Hawks in the final game here, I noticed the rotation was actually very, very favorable to their advantage. The thing with the Heat, I would say out of 10. Or their 9-man rotation, I would say 8 of them are very, very compatible energies. That's a great thing, right? Because I've noticed Jovic was out of the rotation, of course, Rozier as well, and Jaime Jaquez. Now, those are some energies that could set off an imbalance, right, in a sense, except for Rozier. But Rozier has been sort of underperforming in a sense, from what I've seen. But yeah, I think out of all the series in this year's playoff, Miami could potentially be one of those teams that could upset a top seed. But Cleveland is really, really good.
Really good.
Really good. Cleveland has a talent. Cleveland has the depth. Cleveland has the synergy. the starter synergy. I think the thing that lacks about the Miami Heat really is their experience and talent compared to a team like the Cavaliers. They got they got Donovan Mitchell. They have a good, strong core of talented individuals that's also played, for quite some time now. So if there was a takeaway, Miami Heat, that would be sort of like their disadvantage would be the experience and talent, and experience meaning the players. They have Khalil Ware starting at center. He's still up and coming. First year. So that's sort of what I mean by that. But if there was an upset, I think Miami Heat could be that one team that could upset a top seed. But by the end of the day, I still do think that the Cavaliers can end up coming up winning the series.
And look, Miami did something that hasn't been done before. They're the first 10 seed to go to the play-in tournament and make it into the playoffs. So now they will become the 10 seed, but now they face the first seed. So I think my biggest issue with the Heat is they're I love their grid. I love the pickups they made. Wiggins, Davion Mitchell. I'm a huge Davion Mitchell fan. Ever since he was at Baylor,
right?
Former defensive player of the year, championship pedigree, won the 2021 NCAA title, if I'm not mistaken. Final four there are Houston Cougars were also in. They got beat by that Baylor team. They put the clamps on them. But no, I feel my biggest issue with the Heat though is I feel sometimes they don't have a closer. It's almost like by committee. So I feel, and they mentioned this in the game. The Heat throughout the season, they give up the lead so many times and lost games that way, like double-digit leads. I think they let the league in losing double-digit lead. So and hey, we almost saw it, right? The Hawks were down 16. The Hawks down 16. They came back. So and that's why I think it'll be a close series. But I do think the Cavs will prevail. But close series, I'm not sure if close series in games or just that every game's gonna be so close. I mean, we could have a close series where it's like it's a 5-game series, but every game could have gone either way. It could be that kind of series. But knowing the Heat, I think I'm gonna go with Cavs in 6 on this one. What do you say, Zodiac?
I would say also Cavs in 6. I still feel like there's a slight edge to Miami that could potentially get them to beat the Cavaliers in this series. I mean, Miami, I'm just looking at the roster. They do have a strong synergy. Yeah. Wiggins, the Pisces, Adebayo, the Cancer. That Pisces Cancer synergy is really strong. Ware being the Taurus, sort of that fixed energy that kind of complements Adebayo very, very well. Because that Cancer Taurus synergy, as you know, that's really, really, it's really, really strong. And then Hero is that cusp energy, right? He has that Capricorn Aquarius cusp, so that's also one of that sort of a pseudo type of energy that kind of blends in well with this Miami Heat team. Cavaliers in 6 in this series.
There you go. From the Cavaliers and the Heat, we go on to the defending NBA champions Boston Celtics, who take on the Magic, who they themselves were in the play-in tournament, defeating the Hawks. Celtics versus Magic, I think it's going to be it's a good matchup for the forwards, right? We have with the Magic, you have Paul Banchero and Wagner, and then Celtics, you got Brown and Tatum. So it's going to be a battle of the forwards. Celtics, defending champions, I feel that they have their mentality in what it took them to win last season. I think it's just going to propel them to make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals. So obviously I see them beating the Magic, but I think that the Magic are going to give them some issues because of those forwards, Banchero and Wagner, so it'll be interesting. The matchups that come from this game, as far as is Banchero going to stay on Tatum, and then how many pick and rolls does Tatum try and get away from Paul?
You're right.
And I know the Celtics have a strong synergy because they pretty much brought this whole team back from last season, and they had a strong synergy. So how do you see this game from a synergy perspective? Do you see one has a little edge over the other?
Well, Boston still has that strong edge. See, the thing is, there's different levels to all the synergy analysis, right? So what Boston has, they have a strong synergy within 3 key players in his team, and that's Jaylen Brown's a Scorpio, right? And then you have Tatum, who's a Pisces, both water signs, right?
Yeah.
So not only that, they also have Derek White, right, who is a Cancer. So that Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio synergy is really, really strong. I always see Derek White as sort of like that player that no one really talks much about, but he means so much to this team. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Like as soon as Boston acquired him several years back, I mean, the trend of the wins that started coming in bunches and eventually won the championship. He is a key factor to this whole team. He sort of enables Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But not only that, they have Drew Holiday. They have Porzingis, two very, very talented individuals on its own right. You have a Leo in Porzingis and Drew Holiday, the Gemini. That Leo-Gemini connection is really, really strong. So it fits their rotational synergy. It fits their positional synergy. It fits their team synergy. Their coach synergy is also really, really great because Missoula being that Cancer, also another water sign. So they have a number of water signs that sort of connects well and it aligns well with the whole team structure, right? So speaking with that, the Magic, on the other hand, I feel like there's an imbalance there. I don't know. This Magic team is just one of those teams I've looked over the season. I'm like, okay, they don't really have that synergy strength. They do have a strong synergy with the duo of Banchero and Wagner, right? So Banchero's a Scorpio, Wagner's a Virgo. That's also a strong synergy, but I feel like they don't have enough to complement those pieces. They're opposite synergies from the head coach, right? So Mosley being a Libra, so it's also opposite synergy. So that also plays a factor. So they don't have as much synergy strength overall compared to the Boston Celtics, which is part of the reason why I feel like if there was a sweep, it'd probably be this series here. But that's just my take on it.
I definitely feel this could be that series where I could feel, I think the series will go Boston in 5. I think Magic are talented, at least at the 4%. They may be able to just sneak one. Maybe they'll lose the first 2 in Boston, then go 1 game 3 in Orlando, and then, Boston gets the next 2. But I do hope that with that saying, I think Orlando has a good team, but I think they just got hit with so many injuries, So for them to even make it to the 7th seed and make a playoff run, hey, that's great. Come back, retool, because we know the talent that they have, Yes. So I think it's just about them getting healthy, because we saw what a healthy Magic could do last. This is their second year in the playoffs in a row, so it bodes well for their future, So, but yeah, I think it's gonna be Boston. It's
I feel like the Cole Anthony needs to play in the series if they want to even get a chance. He means so much to Banchero Wagner. I know I didn't mention him initially, but because this season for some reason he was either thrown out the rotation or just didn't play enough. But him being that Taurus energy and Cole Anthony connects so well with the combination of Banchero and Franz Wagner. So trio right there connects very, very well. And if they utilize a player like Bitadze a little bit more, being that Cancer energy, that's a good synergy. But from what I've noticed, the way they utilize their rotation, Carter Jr. being that Aries kind of throws them off in that synergy, right? And then, of course, they got Anthony Black also plays. Suggs being injured. But yeah, that's part of the reason why I feel like they don't have it fully aligned in synergy. But they do have enough to compete, of course, but there's always something a little bit off about this team. And I feel like because of that, so certain players I feel like need to play a little bit more to complement, Banchero and Wagner.
We'll see. So we're both saying, you say a sweep for Boston, I say Boston in 5. Now from that one, we go to 1. I think it's probably in the Eastern Conference, probably the most, the one that everybody's most looking forward to. At least I am in the Eastern Conference. We're talking about the Knicks and the Pistons. Zodiac, I think this is going to be a dogfight.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a freaking fight.
I admire the Pistons, man. The Pistons are just that tough team.
Nothing but respect for these Pistons, man. Especially when you consider where they came from. Last 2 seasons being bottom dwellers, just being among the worst in NBA history, right? The turnaround. Just, come on, it goes without saying. JB Bickerstaff. We saw him here when he was with the Houston Rockets. Still young, but you saw what he could be. And it's funny, one of his former teams, the Cavs also, he led the Cavs to playoffs at one point. So, I'm glad that now he's finally gotten a chance, and he's turned this franchise around. That's just plain and fact. So it's the how this team has transformed and taken on the identity of the city too. Very tough, very grit. Kind of those bad boys Pistons. You remember, in the 80s or early 90s. So, and the city is behind them. So I think I think Pistons are going to give the Knicks a lot of trouble because of that. I think it's.
You're right.
I do see the Knicks winning, but I think Knicks are going to walk away from this battle with scratches and like
sure.
out here and there. It's going to be, and that goes to the Knicks because the Knicks are not going to back down. Knicks coached by Tom Thibodeau. I've been a Tom Thibodeau fan ever since he was with an assistant coach at the Boston Celtics. I was like, this man is bad. This man knows a defensive guru. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. This is. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes 7. So like I think this series could go 7.
Okay.
I think for the Knicks it'll be, can they stop Cunningham? I think he's averaged somewhere, I saw 30 points per season against the Knicks this season. Yeah. Close to 8-9 assists. So it'll be, do they let it be the Cunningham show and just let him do his thing and shut everybody down, or be like shut him down and hope and make sure everybody else, if they can beat you, they beat you, right? So
yeah,
but I do see it could go 7. I'm gonna say Knicks 7. I think the Pistons are just that tough that they're gonna be so stubborn they're not gonna want to lose. So I think it's gonna be some close games. But how do you see it?
I see, if everyone's healthy, of course, throughout the whole series, I do see the Knicks pulling it off. I would say 5-5.
Okay.
The thing with the Pistons, they do surprise me. The thing, one player that sort of it's like that blessing in disguise in a sense, but of course is Ivy, right? So Ivy,
Royal Ivy, yeah.
No, not Royal Ivy, Jaden.
Oh, Jaden Ivy, yeah.
When he went down on injury, right, that sort of shifted their whole rotation, and oddly enough, in favor for Coach Bickerstaff, because Bickerstaff is a Pisces, right? So Ivy being an Aquarius, and with him being that Aquarius, and then I think they were starting Osor Thompson, both Aquarius, and then they had three signs that were either earth or water, which kind of threw off their starting lineup. But I think because of that one rotational shift, turned out to be favorable for Bickerstaff, right? Because, and also Dennis Schroeder coming in, him being that Virgo, and that Pisces Virgo synergy between Bickerstaff and Schroeder is a big plus, and considering that Schroeder plays a lot of the point guard as well.
On that thought on the Jaden Ivey, I just while you were talking, I saw this article. They're talking about the head-to-head series, right? Detroit took the series 3-1. The one time New York won came all the way back in the start of November, before Jaden Ivey got hurt, and those changes had to happen.
You're right.
So it just goes to what you're saying, that because of that injury, unfortunately to Jaden, that forced Detroit to make changes, but that enforcement, exactly. Wow.
Yeah, and it reminded me of the way the Knicks were last year. When Hartenstein came in, when Randall was out, for example, and then New York just started becoming this good team all of a sudden, right? Because their synergy, the rotational synergy was favorable, even though unfortunately there were some injured players, some key pieces on the team. But this is what the Detroit Pistons remind me of, because Schroeder, being that Virgo, fits well, right? And then he goes in, he does his thing, and then Ronald Holland is a Cancer, also connects fairly well with the group. Marcus Sasser, that backup point guard, that backup combo, but also very, very favorable. So, Jalen Duren, Scorpio, Tim Hart, Pisces. I mean, all these energies. It's a good chunk of players that's plays a lot of minutes within the rotation, and then the more players that you have that connect well together, they tend to do better, right? All-Star Thompson, sort of that outcast, the outlier, but his role in his team is still sort of like that role player. He's not really the go-to one or two option, right? Don't forget Tobias Harris, also a Cancer, fits well with that. So that's pretty much what I mean, is that it's favorable to Bickerstaff and then his energy. Cunningham is also that cusp energy of that Libra Libra energy, Libra Virgo cusp, right? So he's sort of that in between, which connects well with this group as well.
Okay, so I say Knicks in 7. What'd you say?
I would say Knicks.
Oh, you said 5, right? You said Knicks in 5.
I would say Knicks in 5. Yeah,
we'll see. First one we're a bit apart on. It's gonna happen. Now this next.
I'll be ready for some fights, though.
Sure.
For some reason, because New York's not going to back down.
No, they're not going to back down, sir.
Yeah, I've seen them play, and it's just so amazing. They're so physical, and
they resemble a Tom Thibodeau team. Now, I will say they're a bit less grit than last season, but last season they had to do that because of the injuries, right? So no,
you're right.
So moving on to the Pacers and the Bucks. Now, this is a series that at first I was thinking this is a toss-up for me, because 4-5 close, but I think the Bucks are going to take it. I was looking at the stats from the game, their matchup. I think Bucks won 3 of the 4 games, and I think Antetokounmpo was just a monster in each game. Like they just had no answer for him. I think. What they may try to do in this playoff series is maybe have Siakam, see how that can do. But even then, while Siakam is a great defender, I don't think he has the size for Giannis to match up. So that's kind of how I see it. I do think the Bucks can win this series. And then, of course, there's that question: is Dame Lillard going to play this series? I know he's already been cleared to play basketball again. I think he'll be out for this first game, but he's been cleared to play basketball. So do you bring him? Do you just kind of let them see how the team is doing without him? They made it to the 5th seed, so see if they can win the Pacers without him, and then bring them back later in the series possibly, or second round to win. But I do think this is a Giannis gonna lead the effort here. There's pace. Nobody, the Pacers have nobody that can stop them. The only hope is that Giannis gets into foul trouble, so he's off the court, right? So I think this is looking like Bucks in 5. Bucks in 5 for me. What do you say?
Yeah, Pacers is a tough team as well, but I feel like in this series in particular, the best player, Giannis, and he can easily dominate. But not only that, it favors. As far as for coach synergy, slightly favors the Bucks as well, because Rivers being that Libra and Giannis being that Sagittarius, that's a good connection. And within a series, that can mean a lot, right? So yeah, I definitely see the Bucks kind of getting an edge over the Pacers on this one. The thing with the Pacers is that the way they utilize their bench, during a rotation, it actually complements them. Like a player like TJ McConnell coming in to, like say when he substitutes in for Halliburton, that their synergy actually improves. So that's sort of what I mean. They have served several players like that benefits them, but that's more on the bench level, right? The starter synergy, even with Lillard out, it does favor the Bucks in this series as well. So that's sort of the reason why I picked the Bucks in the series. I would say Bucks in 5.
Yeah, I think this seems like a Bucks in 5. I think they split the games in Indiana, and then they come back to Milwaukee. Milwaukee gets them both, and then maybe gets the 5th game in Indiana.
But I always feel like that Indiana's like so underrated that they'll probably end up just winning the series as well. See, Indiana's a good team too.
They're a good team. They're a good team. But look, last year these two teams met, and guess what? Pacers beat the Bucks, but Giannis wasn't playing. So as I was saying, that's a big difference. There's nowhere on the roster that can, slow down Giannis. So yeah, I think
health is a big factor. Health is definitely
a big factor. Yeah. From the Eastern Conference, we're going to take it to the Western Conference. But before we start on the first seed, because the last playing game is still going on, we're recording late Friday night. Dallas and Memphis are still ongoing. Memphis had a big lead, but Dallas is creeping back in. So we're going to hold off on that series to see who's going to face the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to talk about our hometown, the Houston Rockets.
Oh, yes.
Facing an opponent that they know all too well in the Golden State Warriors. And I say all too well because a lot of Rockets fans still have PTSD from facing the Warriors and their mighty, the juggernaut that they were, But we got to give props to the Rockets. They were the only team that went toe-to-toe with them and almost took them out if it wasn't for one damn hamstring injury, Zodiac. But so Rockets Warriors. This is another series that I think is going to be a dogfight. We know these Rockets play tough. We know they're stubborn. They're very fixed the line, right? You've told us many times that's where they're strength. And I think they're so stubborn. That's what made them so good this season. They just refuse to lose. And they get that from their coach, right? Ime Udoka, who may win coach of the year. And of course, with the Warriors, you have Draymond Green, so that alone just is, it's an invitation for chaos.
Yeah.
So with the Rockets Warriors, I think the Rockets have the upper hand in this matchup, as far as youth is, But when you go to experience, that's where Golden State has it. I think this is one of the matchups that I would prefer Houston not to deal with them at this early stage in their young playoff career. But I do think it's also good for them to, your first playoff matchup and you're going up against Grizzly veterans, like not the Grizzlies, right? But veterans are just been through it, not just Curry and Green. We're talking about Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets. Playoff Jimmy is a real thing. We've seen it. So it's gonna be a battle. And I think at first I was apprehended, not upset, but I was a little like, shucks, right, that they have to face him. But now I think it's the best thing that could have happened because now, hey, this is the playoff. This is the big boys league now, and can they now continue on what they started in the season? And, and if they can get past the Warriors, that is just such a boost of confidence to this young team, But so as far as matchups, we saw what Emin Thompson did to Steph Curry last time they played. Steph Curry was in jail. Pretty much, he just could not, he couldn't find his get out of jail free card. Nobody had the key. Amen Thompson locked him down. So I think it's gonna be interesting how Steve Kerr finds ways to get Steph Curry involved in the offense. Because let's be honest, everything still revolves around him. His gravitational pull opens things up for other players. So, but if Amen Thompson is how he's playing in the last game, it'll be interesting to see what Steve Kerr does. And obviously, it means maybe having Jimmy Buckets more involved as he has been. But I still think it's going to be a dogfight, this one. I think I'm going to say Rockets in 7. I'm saying Rockets in 7 for this one. I think it's going to be a tough one. I think they split the home games, then they split the road games, then the Rockets game 5, then Golden State game 6, and then Houston wins 7 at home. So that's what I'm picking. What say you, Zodiac?
I don't know. This series just screams volatility for me. I don't know.
Right? I know.
To me, it seems like it's either one team or the other is just going to dominate the series. And what I mean by that is that the Houston Rockets are probably the most stubborn team in the whole NBA, with all these fixed energies aligned to their roster and the key players, even their head coach. And on the other hand, Golden State Warriors are probably the most mutable, dominant team in the NBA. So what does that mean, right? The mutable, it brings a lot of adaptability to scenarios and situations. So one game to another, this is the team that you can anticipate adapting fairly well to change their style or schemes or whatever the case is, right? But they're also inconsistent. The Golden State Warriors could be that one team that could lead by 20, but then lose it the next minute, right? That's kind of what I mean by inconsistency. But on the other hand, the Rockets are so fixed dominant that they're going to stick to whatever their style is. And a lot of people already kind of know that. If you look at the Rockets days when Mike D'Antoni was here, he was a Taurus head coach. Everyone knew what the Rockets were going to do, right? 3-point shooting team, that fast paced offense, and where, they shoot, what was it, like that 7-second clock, so forth. So that's what sort of that brings, and it stems from your head coach. Now, Ime Udoka is a Leo, also fixed dominant. So they're going to be predictable. Is pretty much what I'm saying, right? But their predictability stems on how strong their game plan and their players and the skill, talent, experience, everything else falls. And that's kind of what I mean. So it's either the Rockets are going to dominate this series because the Warriors can't do much about it, or the Warriors are going to dominate this series because the Rockets can't really keep up with their experience. I mean, Warriors definitely have experience on their edge. So coach synergy, edge, Rockets. Starter synergy, equal. They both have that 4-1 synergy. Experience, definitely the Warriors, in my opinion, right? Talent, you can make an argument, but I would say, of course, the Warriors would have that edge and talent. Of course, the Rockets are more the younger talent, but I feel like they're maybe 2 years, 3 years away from really going into that prime mode, right? So I would pick the Rockets in the series if they were to dominate in 5.
Rockets in 5. Ooh, yes. I like that. I like what you said, that you feel they're not ready, and I also feel they're not ready. But I think if they get this serious, I think that readiness level is just because of the series alone, it's going to raise them up. Like it's going to put them on a faster trajectory than if they lose the series, because of who they're beating, what it means, the players that the Golden State has, the experience on itself alone. If this team can beat that, I think that's gonna another obviously a confidence boost, but just let them know that, hey, they're on the right track faster than what everybody thought they were gonna get.
And that's the reason why I feel like it's going to go one way or the other. I feel like either Warriors going to dominate or the Rockets going to dominate. But I feel like if the Warriors end up dominated, I feel like it's due to the lack of experience for the Rockets, because they have the Warriors. Steph Curry can dominate 1, 2, 3, majority of the games. He usually has that one game that he has a bad.
Yeah, always. Day, right? He always has that one
game. And what helps him is Jimmy Butler, and then Draymond is just Draymond. They're just smart players, and they have a good thing going over there. I still feel like the Rockets still have that advantage, and I feel like it's gonna lead to the head coach, because
I think a big key to this series is for the Rockets is Fred VanVleet and the experience he has. I mean, he beat this Golden State Warriors team in the finals, so I think that's gonna be big. Right. Steve Adams as well, that experience. So I think, but I also think that this team throughout the season, they've superseded expectations. Obviously, hey, let me praise myself. Let me give myself flowers, because what I said Houston's gonna be the most surprising team this season, and they were that. And that's taking you in a row, right? Because, was that?
They have depth too. The Rockets have. I feel like having an advantage in depth.
That's where I feel they can come in and have an advantage. But I do think it'll be Rockets in 7. I think we could see some blowouts for sure. Going to what you're saying, then I think we'll see some close games. But I think this is going to be a good series for the Rockets. Win or lose, I think win obviously just propels them further on the trajectory. But I think this is probably my most, obviously, being Warriors and Rockets fans, so we're it's our number one series that we want to watch.
Oh, for sure, yes.
And then moving on from this matchup, which we're really looking forward to, is a matchup that I'm sure a lot of people are looking for the star power. Right? We're talking about Lakers and the T-Wolves. Luka and LeBron. We got Ant-Man. It's. I think it's gonna be a fun matchup. I think it's first time seeing Luka in the playoffs with the Lakers. We know the Luka magic that happens in the playoffs. We saw when he was in Dallas. I think there's gonna be a series that it could go one or two ways. Similar to what you're saying with the Rockets Warriors. I think this series could be like where the Lakers just take off. They just run through the Wolves. Maybe the Wolves get a game or two, but I do think the Lakers just the road that now that they've been on since Luka. I think after the first 19, 20 games, Luka, you saw his numbers start to get better. I mean, he was already having good numbers in those 19 games, but I'm saying you saw it more, the efficiency there. And, granted, he was probably getting healthy from the injury he had. But I think Wolves, Lakers, I think Lakers take it. I had a note here that I wanted to talk about the Lakers. Because the Wolves, I mean, all the Lakers got to do is try and stop Ant-Man, right? I think Julius Randle hasn't been the player that we thought he was going to be with this, which is odd because the Wolves after that trade, they improved their synergy, but it just didn't quite click, I was hoping that Ant-Man and Randall, Leo Sagittarius, right? If I'm not mistaken, I thought they were gonna have a better connection. And maybe they do have synergy, but just maybe not on the core, or maybe they weren't able to develop it based on the play style. Sometimes that happens. But I think this is gonna be not a cakewalk, but I think it'll be a Lakers in 5 series. That's what I say.
This one is kind of tricky, but the thing with the Timberwolves, I mean, since All-Star break, they've had one of the best records, right, in the league. I would say I think they were like 18-8 or something like that. So they started gelling pretty much at some point, and they they are where they're at. I mean, they could have easily been the 3rd seed as well as with 4 other teams, right? But I think Timberwolves is one of those low key teams that that's to watch out for as well. They have a 4-1 synergy, and I think in the beginning they struggled, and I kind of anticipated that because the head coach being a Scorpio, Finch being a Scorpio, it was sort of opposite synergy from their core starting 5. But as you mentioned, Edwards being that Leo with Sagittarius with Randall, and then they have two Libras and Conley, and can't think of the other guy's name, the forward. And then Gobert as well, McDaniels. There you go. So they have a 4-1 synergy, which is part of the reason why they've been playing so well, right? So I think in this, I can see Timberwolves pulling it off, and if they do, I would see them pulling it off in 7. The thing with the Lakers, though, you can't count out Luka and LeBron and so on, but I feel like they're lacking a little bit on the synergy. I feel like they don't have enough. Synergy is sort of like that mediocre range, right? So, but they do have the coach synergy because, Redick connects very, very well with LeBron James and Doncic, so that alone means a lot. But we'll see how it pans out in the series. But I still see a slight edge with the
a slight edge for the Wolves. I mean, you're right. Wolves, since I think March 1st, I was just reading, they were 17-4. So they definitely ended on a good run.
Wow.
They found their group late. Maybe it's not what we got used to seeing, with Cat, right? But I think it was it took them a while to get there. And I wonder if they can carry that momentum. I still think Lakers are going to take it. I do think it'll be a close series. I think it'll be a 5-6 game series. Maybe it could go 7. Yeah. But I do think Lakers, I just think the game's going to slow down a bit in the playoffs. Obviously, we know. And look, the Wolves have playoff experience, so it's not like they don't know what to expect. I do wonder what the matchups and how Edwards attack. Does he have to? Do they just attack Luka relentlessly? Do they go after LeBron James because he's 40? But then again, he is LeBron James, so just because he's 40.
It kind of goes both ways, ironically, because Rudy Gobert is like everyone's going to pick on him.
Exactly.
And on the other hand, most likely Luka's going to be a target on the for the Timberwolves. So it kind of goes both sides, and it's an interesting series to see who's going to give in first. But I feel like with Rudy, I think they can easily substitute him with Naz Reid, and I think that's a big plus for them.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see how it pans out and how they use their rotation. But JJ Redick, first time coach, I mean, he's doing a really, really good job. And I think the Lakers are going to be tough to beat. I mean, but I just feel like they're lacking in synergy. But of course, in playoffs, talent could easily dominate a series as well. So Lakers can even win this. But I see this more as a close series in respect for both the Timberwolves and the Lakers. And I see Timberwolves sort of pulling it off at the end. But that's just my prediction on that.
We'll see what happens. And then we'll go to over a little. We got staying in LA, actually. We got Clippers and Nuggets next series we're talking about. And this is going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a good series. I think people are sleeping on the Clippers, if I'm being honest with you, Zodiac.
You're right.
Not enough people are speaking about the Clippers. And let's be honest, James Harden, stand up, props. Like, he had a good season. Not the James Harden, obviously, that we know, but he was very efficient. He was the main player for the Clippers until Kawhi came back, right? When did Kawhi come back? Whenever he came back, right? But he carried them. He he kept them, weather the storm as far as standings. And I think they have a good rotational team. I think this might be a better team than the Clippers have had, even when they had Paul George. I think from a play style perspective, from a understanding of each other. And I think it's going to be a good series. And look, Denver, defending champions, I know you keep telling us, you've always told us Denver has always had a good synergy. Now, how is that synergy now matched with the coach? So I know you're going to tell us about that. But this 4-5 matchup, Nuggets, Clippers, it's going to be tough. I worry about, from the Clippers perspective, how do they stop Nikola Jokic, right? Who just arguably had one of the best seasons a center has ever had in NBA history, and he may not win MVP. So it's Clippers, high offensive rating, a tough team, but the Nuggets have experience winning titles. You have Nikola Jokic, a perennial MVP candidate for the past 5 years. It's, to be honest, this is the one series where I was having to struggle picking who. So before I pick, I'm gonna see what you have to say, because this is a tough one. This is a toss up for me.
Actually, out of all the series, this is the one I want to zone into, because it's exciting. Both teams are so evenly matched. They both have that 4-1 synergy. Coach synergy, even though it's A+ for both sides. I mean, Adelman, he's only coached 3 games. So I wonder how much that experience, that lack of experience, going to affect in the playoffs. But it can either go both ways too, because this connection goes really, really well. I mean, you can see it, as soon as he started coaching, he won the next 3 games, but Clippers, wow. Leonard,
yep.
Harden, Zubac. Now, not a lot of people talk about this duo, but Zubac and Harden, Zubac being a Pisces, Harden being a Virgo, man, that's a strong synergy. That's a very, very strong synergy, right? But also include Kawhi Leonard being that Cancer. So that Cancer, Pisces, both water signs connect very, very well as well. And then that Virgo being that mutable, adaptable energy, and James Harden is able to connect very, very well. But also another player that not many talk about as well is was it Dunn being a Pisces, So he's also in the starting lineup as well. So that's what creates that 4-1 synergy. And they all connect well with the head coach. So that's part of the reason why they are where they're at right now. But Denver is Denver. They've had the experience. They've already won the championship. They have probably the best player in the league in Jokic. I see it going Game 7. It's a toss-up, but I still see a slight edge in the Denver Nuggets. I think it's going to be one of those heartbreakers for either team, whoever comes out on top. But I do see this going all the way to Game 7.
I'm going to, just for shits and giggles, I'm going to go with Clippers 7. I think
okay.
I mean, since Kawhi started playing, since return from injury, it changed what the Clippers could do offensively and defensively. I think because I would say that Harden was great and he led this team and he weathered the storm. They needed Kawhi to take that next level in their game and elevate. Ever since he came back, they've been one of the better teams as far as offensive efficiency, how many points they score for possessions, how many possessions they're getting. And it just, Kawhi, when you watch him play, you're just like, oh my God, this guy's like a smooth robot. He just like, I'm gonna get to my spot, rise up, shoot, you can't do nothing about it. Like, he's just like, it's just his same shot, just like you can't stop it. Like, what he's doing, his little turnaround, it's very smooth and very like, it's just hard for opposing teams. And I think that's what I worry about the Denver Nuggets too, is defensively. But I think their offense is so good that I think that's why I think it will go 7. And I do think Clippers take it in 7 games. Wait, who's the 5th seed? I forget with these.
I think the Clippers, the Nuggets, and the
Clippers are the 5th seed. Okay, so Clippers start on the road. Ooh, that's
and a unique thing about Kawhi Leonard is that he's a winner, straight up.
Straight up.
I was just looking at, if you look at his stats, like his winning percentage in his career, can you guess what it is? In his career, 72%.
72% win percentage.
72%. Mind you, he was at the San Antonio Spurs, and he won the championship at the Toronto Raptors. And even though he hasn't played many games with the Clippers, he's played enough for them to be very competitive. But if you look it up, Kawhi Leonard career winning percentage, 72% in his career. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing.
That just tells you that when he's on the court, you have your team has a great chance to win. And look, we've been talking about this series that it's so close. Even the odd makers have it as a toss-up.
You're right.
It's nearly even odds. I think this is going to be the closest series because both teams are equally talented. It comes down to like the finer details. So it's. I'm saying Clippers in 7. You said Nuggets in 7. So I think let's just hope for a good series. I think that's what I want. And then the last series we're going to talk about is.
But if Kawhi Leonard is healthy real quick, I mean, that's it. He just needs to be healthy. That's the thing.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. That's what you need with him, But finally, the last series on this long episode is the Thunder versus what I'm going to go ahead and call it right now is the Grizzlies. They're winning 103-86. And look, if we wake up tomorrow and the Mavericks miraculous comeback, I will eat it. But we're going to talk about Grizzlies and OKC Thunder. These teams are very familiar with each other. They're both in the same conference, right? They're the same division. Sorry, division. No, wait, Grizzlies. No. They moved. Sorry. Yeah, Thunder are now in the Northwoods division. I forgot about that. I forgot they did that. So they're no longer. But I think this is a series where I think the Thunder are going to take it. I think the Grizzlies are going to make a run for it. They're going to fight, because it's the Memphis Grizzlies, right? And John Moran being Leo, he likes to put on a show. I mean, we already saw him put on a show in this game. So but I think OKC Thunder, it's just been the best team all season long. Yes, I know they're young, but I think they have enough playoff experience from the past seasons. They have the MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I do think it'll be a fun series because both of these teams are young. So I do think it'll be a fun series, but I see Thunder winning in 5 or 6 games. Zodiac.
For sure. Yeah, maybe even a sweep. I think I was the Memphis Grizzlies, they had a really, really good team overall synergy in the beginning of the year with Taylor Jenkins, right? I think that kind of took a hit once Taylor Jenkins was dismissed. And, Salo, him being a Leo, he's opposite synergy from the rest of the team. And the thing with the Memphis Grizzlies, they're dominant on a lot of the energies that favors that water and element, the water and earth element, right? So when those two elements connect, and that's what the Memphis Grizzlies have, a lot of that water, earth element. But also consider this. I wouldn't say this, the 3 Virgos that affects this Memphis Grizzlies team. Jalen Wells, he got injured, right?
Yep.
Being a Virgo. Brandon Clark, also a Virgo. Taylor Jenkins, also a Virgo. There's something about the Virgos. It's strange. It's been a tough year for some of the Virgos, right? And mind you, Mike Malone, who's in Denver, was also a Virgo. But back to Memphis, it's just I think team synergy outside from head coach for the Grizzlies is still an A+ overall, right? Starter synergy A-, coach synergy a C+, and I think that's kind of where they're going to falter in this series because Thunder has it all. Thunder has a really good synergy because their best player is SGA, him being a Cancer. Well, he connects well with Diagonal, being a Pisces. That Cancer-Pisces synergy strong. Who else does he connect with? Hey, 2 Tauruses on that team, Hartenstein and Holmgren. They're both Taurus energy. Not only that, they have Wallace being that Scorpio, Jay Williams, the big man Jay Williams, Cancer, Aaron Wiggins being that Capricorn, Caruso, Pisces, Isaiah Joe, Cancer. All these energies connects well to SGA.
Yeah.
All of them. That's a big chunk of the roster. And that's part of the reason why they're one of the best teams in the league. So for sure, I mean, I see this more of either a sweep or, 4 or 5 at most.
Yeah, I think OKC is just too much. I think for the Grizzlies, hey, good, you're back in the playoffs. Take this lump and figure out what you want to do with the coach. Because to make the playoffs after you fire the coach unexpectedly, as I'm sure many many felt. So I think take your lumps in the playoff and come back next season, hire the right coach. I mean, some argue Taylor Jenkins was the right coach, but we'll see. But that is our final group to matchup, because that's all the matchups we have on this long episode, probably our longest episode. Zodiac, any final words?
Follow us on Twitter X at the Zodiac GM and Hoopstrology.
And follow me, Jesus_Acevedo Jr. and follow the Bayou City. And don't forget to subscribe.